Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and today I want to talk about some underappreciated cards in Smash Up. On Monday, I focused on cards that missed the mark for me, for varying reasons, and I wanted to go the opposite route today and talk about cards that I think deserve more attention. So I made a list of 12 cards that you could easily build a strategy around, choosing 12 things instead of 10 for extremely cryptic reasons. But one of the advantages of picking 12 is that the average faction contains 12 total card designs, so I can model this like a faction, choosing a 2, 3, 4, and 5 slot, 2 double features, and 6 single actions. Unlike Monday, I will look at everything in the game rather than a specific starting point because value can be found anywhere. My pick for the 2 slot is Captain Ahab. I love movement, and the context is perfect for Captain Ahab. When Rotary Slug Thrower inevitably happens, those 2s that you spread out all become easy 4s. Given all the synergies on playing extra minions of power 2, having them be mobile means that you could utilize that power instantly. They are great on the homeworld, fantastic with Zombie Lord, and there are too many examples to name. But they are also great because they don't take up Zeppelin usages and allow you to stash an Ahab on a difference engine for continual card draw. You can keep them camped on Escape Hatch because eventually they will be able to move. They are just an all-around great 2 that really brings a lot to this faction, but they are often overshadowed by heavy hitters like the Mechanic. My pick for the 3 slot, as much as it pains me, is the Game Guru. Between Will Wheaton, Felicia Day, Control Minion, and Force of Will, you have plenty of geek cards that rightfully anger players. But don't sleep on Game Guru, who is practically invulnerable. It is extremely hard to remove these guys, and that is critical because the geeks only have 5 minions. Not 9, but 5, because I always throw away the fans. This means that I can settle for second place, and you cannot really do anything about it. There are only a handful of esoteric plays that can remove them, and the quantity of them is enough to secure victory at the appropriate time. They will never get the same level of attention as the others, and I think that they are too good to exist at 3 copies, because I don't believe that any single card should be its own protection. But they do exist, and because of that, they deserve your attention. My pick for the 4 slot is the Deep Fryer. With Munchkin, you always have a set number of players who ignore it, or who will only play it without larger game interaction. But the Clerics are easily convertible, and if you forget about the Clerics, you'll forget about a minion who basically acts like its own Kraken, saving a powerful minion for another base. Deep Fryers are so good that they can conceivably set up the 4 scores with 3 bases play that I have been dying to pull off, which typically needs pirates. Having access to 2 life preservers can be really powerful as you set up powerful double scores or maintain a constant threat. And when you factor in Been and Gone, with singularly powerful minions, you can do some truly crazy things. There are a lot of underappreciated king minions, but given their role, an underappreciated king typically leads an underappreciated faction. So I chose the Pharaoh. In addition to being a lightning rescue type that produces the mind games I love, I decide on a card in advance. What will it be? His card draw ability can be very underappreciated. He can trigger for other players, which happens rarely, but is significant on pyramids. You can take it with you, becomes 4 cards. I've used him to draw at least 6 cards in a turn once, and the fact that he is global turns out to be a great boon for the faction. Between the relative newness of the faction, their technical complexity, and their lack of an easily synergistic mechanic, ancient Egyptians do not get a lot of attention, and the Pharaoh is a great engine minion who is really worth your time. For my first double feature, I wanted to talk about Pin, a card that gives you the best of both worlds. For a relatively easy to trigger condition, requiring an action, not a setup, Pin is incredibly powerful. The wording on the card is definitely a reason for the lack of attention. Many players aren't always clear on what this does. Pin does 3 main things. First, it cancels a minion's abilities, which it itself can be powerful and helped Luch Egyptians advance far in Smashness. But the double strike of the next part of the ability is really where it shines. A large minion no longer helps its controller win a base, but it still helps the base break. This is a pure form of using an opponent's power, as they are greatly reduced, but the base scoring does not slow down. This is an incredible form of a power reset, and as the only Luchador double feature, it's going to be a major factor in their games. For the second double feature, I have to go all the way back to the core set to talk about Enshrouding Mist. We talk a lot about how good summons are, but Enshrouding Mist is a summon and then some. It gets all the benefits of being a play on base action, which has very little drawbacks, since even if it is only used once, you get the same value as summon. But it gets all the disadvantages of being a trickster card, and it shows you that a strong card, even as a double feature, cannot save a faction if everything else is worse. It is also a curious fit for the tricksters, because it's designed to incentivize gnoming your gremlins, which I'm not sure is the best idea. Don't let a bad faction cause you to overlook what is a great card, especially if you can move minions or actions. For the remaining actions, this is incredibly hard, and I wanted to focus on actions that you can truly build a strategy around, not just cards that are randomly great for reasons that make no sense. There are truly a lot of deserving candidates, but these are the ones that stood out to me the most. I also ruled out any cards that I had previously talked about as an action awareness. My first candidate is the Perfect Gift, which is odd because it breaks Bandit Rule number 9, where an action is just doing a minion thing in action form. But the Perfect Gift lacks a problematic Anansi clause, and because of that omission, I have spent countless times combining the two to do really crazy things. The Perfect Gift can be the action that Anansi grabs, allowing you to collecting stories the card that the Perfect Gift plays as an automatic. It's astounding, and you end up giving the other player a card that they will definitely want to play, which you can exploit. Because of this loophole, your partner factions can get some incredibly powerful combinations. This type of play is like an instant It's Astounding, but with a better overall faction and some Asibo exploitation mixed in. My next card is Last Dance, which can be an incredibly powerful VP farming card, but one that feels earned. One of the problems with bases that VP farm is that they disproportionately affect some factions, but Last Dance requires setup to be truly effective, and if not managed properly, can bleed you of minions. But it also serves as both a great catch-up mechanic and chance to gain an insurmountable lead. I've mentioned before how I won a game without breaking any bases by playing Last Dance on Cave of Shinies for extreme VP surges. I think the complexity of Disco, as well as their theme, pushes players away from this faction, but it's great that they have a completely different strategy as a backup plan. Even if an opponent gets a VP, you can time this right to force them to make a difficult choice while still getting more VP, which is like breaking a base. For low-power swarm combinations, this is definitely a card to consider. My next card is also a VP card, but one that is pretty unblockable, Clever Distraction. As another Munchkin faction, and one that is particularly divisive, the antagonism of this thief card goes largely overlooked. Unlike dragons, who deny VP in advance or have a tell that one is coming, Clever Distraction just happens. You might think that you are winning the game, but you are not. It can mean that losing a base is more advantageous than winning one, and the only counter is to solo a base. Whereas I'm a big fan of helping hands because there is a certain finesse to setting it up, Clever Distraction just happens, and it can be really jarring, which shows off its power. Given that the thieves have the potential to get 2 VPs on their turn, a VP denial and a bonus VP can stall a game, then end it immediately. If this faction were played more, this card would get a lot more attention. For play from behind strategies and those that emphasize second place, this is your card, especially with action recursion. My next card is a powerful 23 special with a love of flexibility. You call this Archaeology. You can move one of your minions, which in Phase 2 is always a good thing. But you should never use this card in Phase 2 because it's a waste of its potential. This action can be used to jump onto a base, which is great, because it's an easy VP. But it can also be used to survive a base as a recursion mechanism, like an instant Deep Fryer. But unlike the Deep Fryer, the movement happens immediately, and this is actually significant because of the lack of the instead of the discard pile clause. Clarificata aside, you can do some potentially interesting things with this card, and the fact that it has 3 distinct uses allows it to derive almost as much value as a card like Full Sail. Whether it's free VP or double VP, this card is setting up a nice play for you. This works great for singularly powerful persistent power minions, as you can swoop in to steal a base or go for the double score. My next card is Spoiled Brats, a pure recursion card. There are a lot of good recursion cards that can give you instant access to a minion. Spoiled Brats is a card whose granularity is your best friend. You can use it in a number of different ways because you can get back exactly what you want. With Lunch Run and bankable extra plays, you can basically draw those cards anyway with Lunch Run. The only thing you cannot control is the order of the cards, but it's very possible to set it up so that the order does not matter. When you need to stack the deck with your most powerful minions, Spoiled Brats can do that, allowing you to pass and just draw, providing no power creep until you explode later. This is a card that acts like a mass minion shuffle card, but gives you full granularity and better relative positioning in the deck. This is another card that, outside of Munchkin, would get a lot of attention, and I have lost count of how many times this action has been used the turn before I did something crazy to end the game. With cards like Last Call and Rude Awakening, the do nothing and then explode strategy really shines, and Spoiled Brats facilitates that well. I find that if you have great pestling targets, put that and a pestling on top of your deck, and be ready to have fun. My final card is another recent card in a faction that players will write off because they hate math, Musketeers. While I understand why players would avoid this faction, To Battle is truly a standout card that I often forget just how good it is. This card can get things started quickly. While there is a limitation on the action, this is about as close as you can get to being a Ghostly Arrival without being a Ghostly Arrival. There are 6 cards that can convert the qualified action into a regular extra action, which greatly achieves a Ghostly Arrival outcome. For Cyborg 8 Musketeers, this card would jumpstart Cyberback into an action because All for One made him a free play. It's one of the best summons in the game because the minion play is unqualified and you get a significant boost on top of that, which can easily start a Musketeer chain. The Musketeer playstyle heavily revolves around doing more with less, which means that some cards have to be above baseline while others are not, and this card is clearly there. It just doesn't get the attention it deserves. For me, anytime you need 2 minions to appear at the same time, especially if one of them is Athos, this is a card to look for. So those are 12 cards I think need more attention, either positively or negatively. I may not like every card, but I cannot deny their power, and they are often overlooked by other cards in their faction. With plenty of candidates and limited time, I cannot cover everything, so who would be on your list? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, let's shut it down.